A month after I released the first edition of my book Unstoppable, my bank account was $3,000 in the red. A month later, sales took off and we did over $50,000 in 2 weeks, then went on to do over 2.3 million and sell over 80,000 copies. What resulted in such a dramatic turnaround was a 3-step process I call the 3 E's that I developed after surveying over 70,000 leaders and entrepreneurs to pinpoint what was at the heart of their failures. In looking at over 1.5 million data points, we discovered those who were in the top 6% of peak performers who achieved their goals 84% of the time, were not only highly motivated, driven, and focused, they were also free of a constellation of biological symptoms that otherwise would have led to poor short-term business decisions versus long-term decisions that could set themselves up for success. The shocking fact was, it wasn't that they weren't smart or willing to do the work. It was that their biology had kneecapped their psychology that led to an inability to make smart decisions. 3 things must fall into place to retrain your brain for wealth and change the trajectory of your life. I've even got a free download for you below to help that will address all 3 E's in just 15 minutes a day. But first, we must address the first one. When I was on the verge of laying off staff, the very first step I had to take was to get control of my emotions. My anxiety was at an all-time high after moving from New York to Florida while being faced with financial ruin. I knew I was making poor business decisions because my brain was too busy running around putting out fires instead of planning. This occurred for 2 reasons. The first, without being aware of it, I was unconsciously playing a mind movie of how my day would unfold negatively. I was doing what is called automatic future pacing. The second reason, I'll get to shortly. Future pacing, otherwise known as mental rehearsal, is used by athletes to prepare for a race, as well as nurses who use it to prepare for life or death situations and acquire new skills rapidly. According to research, around 80% of our thoughts are negative. To break free of my financial situation, instead of mentally rehearsing worst case scenarios, each morning I take 10 minutes to rehearse the best case scenario and emotionally detach from the challenges I faced. This achieved 3 critical goals. The first, it freed up my mental bandwidth that was being wasted on worrying so I could regain my focus. It helped me to rehearse the challenging steps I needed to take so they would become second nature and speed up execution of my plan. And 3, it dampened my negative emotions that led to procrastination, which helped me to manage my emotions more effectively. For instance, imagine you have a goal to make $1 million. Mentally rehearsing each step you must take allows you to address the stress that limits your potential ahead of time. It gives you greater emotional control so you can make decisions based out of logic, not fear. This skill becomes even more important when we get to the 3rd E. The second step to rewire my brain for wealth is an important factor that gets overlooked in business strategy. Missing this step means that your decision-making ability gets kneecapped, which prevents you from ever breaking through. In our data, we found that when an individual's energy levels drop, their motivation, drive, and focus falls off a cliff. They also become more susceptible to criticism.
I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
So, do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, mate, but not my own
No.
stuff. See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry.
You require all 3, motivation, drive, and focus, to succeed in business. You need these cognitive resources to create winning business ideas, execute on them, and adapt when the business climate changes. At the time, I was suffering from decision fatigue, which makes it extraordinarily difficult to make the right choices. It results in impulse buying and avoidance behavior, which leads to procrastination. To counteract this, I developed the Unstoppable Journal. You can download the free daily planning pages from it below. Each morning, you're going to plan out your day in 90-minute blocks, then follow this with a 20-minute break to maximize your brain's capacity to perform and strategize. You'll then identify the top 16 triggers that dull your motivation and focus, followed by selecting from a list of 13 quick biohacks that increase motivation, focus, and drive. This simple activity prevents you from burning out. For many of us, while we want quick and fast results, the reality is you have to be in it for the long haul. The first two E's, emotion and energy, set you up for success, with the third and most important: education. If you're not where you want to be financially, it's because there's a gap in your education. At the time, I didn't have big dollars to invest in advertising. I could only start with $5 a day. The first 90 minutes of every day I dedicated to education. And because I'd gotten a handle on my emotional state and increased my energy and focus, this step became easy. I actively listened to the top marketing podcasts and took notes in the back of my journal about the latest strategies that were working in digital media. I then picked which strategy I would test and scheduled it into my journal. First, I leveraged my email list, and I took what profits I had from that to invest in ads. Not just a couple of ads, but hundreds of variations. First, I'd write the body copy for the ad, then I'd test it against dozens of different headlines and target various audiences to see what resonated. This step alone required a tremendous amount of discipline, which is why managing my emotions by mentally rehearsing my day and using my journal to manage my energy and focus was paramount, so I could see it through until I found winning and profitable ad campaigns. I never would have broken through if I didn't manage the 3 E's: emotion, energy, and education. When you consider where you're at in business right now, ask yourself, are all 3 working for you, or are they working against you? Using the daily journal will help you to optimize all 3 key areas in ways that you never could have imagined.